Perfect. So we are recording. We're here at Mothers Illuminated, and we're here with Jennifer. So Jennifer, tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got there.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate this. This is exciting, actually. So for me, actually, my background is totally different than what I am currently doing. I'm actually used to be an environmental engineer. I used to clean up polluted sites. I used to, research the history of them, go out there. If we saw that there was an issue, we would test the soil and groundwater and see if there was a risk. I did that, and then I got into insurance, environmental insurance, and did kind of that usual, got married, had baby, bought house. And we bought an old house that needed a lot of work. And I live in Massachusetts, and real estate is not cheap. So I did not buy my first house until I was probably in my mid-30s. And until then, I had lived with a lot of white walls with rentals. So it was nice to finally have a house to work on. And then I got pregnant with twins, big surprise, and realized that we weren't going to be doing any more work on our house. So I started taking a notebook, and then I lost the notebook. So, and it was just like stuff like paint, like different tips on how to paint, and we like waterproofed our basement. And I knew we'd get back to it. So I lost the notebook, so I started doing it online and found that people were actually finding me. And then so it kind of snowballed into this blog that I ended up monetizing, and it's Everyday Old House. And I've had that, it was started in 2017. And it is a blog specifically for old homeowners, excuse me, but it kind of morphed into something more that we can kind of talk about later, where it's just a lot of general homeowner tips and DIY projects that just kind of, as we've gotten back into doing them, talking about it. Usually it's a lot of mistakes. I find that my business is a lot of, we tried to redo our deck and we made a big mistake and we had to figure out how to do it again. And that's really, I think the audience is like, yeah, we did that too. And we came across it. We were trying to figure out how to fix it. And thank you. So, so that's kind of my main blog. I started a new blog this month that's a little more, it's close to home with regards to time management. While mom waits, I have a daughter who has some time blindness, and I've learned a lot about time management. And also being a mom of 3, I don't have a lot of time. So I'm trying to learn how to be either more productive or more joyful in those kind of short periods of time that we have, whether it's like waiting in the school pickup line or what have you. So I started the second blog to help myself as well as maybe help others with, other moms trying to manage that challenge.
I love all of that. So there's so much there, which I think is what's interesting. It's like 2 completely different niches, but I love that you started them trying to solve a problem for yourself. And then it just so happened that other people, gravitated towards it because they had the same problems as you. And, I'm in New Hampshire, so I totally feel the old house thing, because New Hampshire and Massachusetts, this whole New England area, the houses are just so old, and, these projects just like they're a thing out here. It's like a whole landscape of how to deal with buying a super old house.
Yes.
So I could totally see the value of that blog. And then, so you were saying that you guys kind of bought a house and you have twins. So, but now you have 3 kids. So,
I do. Yeah.
Yes. Tell me a little bit about how, like that, and kind of that journey into motherhood.
Sure. So, when we first got married, I actually got pregnant immediately with our oldest child, a singleton. And then then we bought the house, and we literally moved when she was 6 weeks old. I actually remember her like sticking her in a box as we were trying to actually move her. And then the twins came around 4 years later. We had tried fertility, to be honest with you, and it didn't work. So we gave up and got a dog and said, this is it. And then got pregnant naturally with twins, and almost fell off my chair when I found out. And they're awesome. They are probably the biggest challenge of my life. I can't see life without them. They are 8 now, and I will tell you, 5 minutes before I was on this call, I was breaking up drama between 3 girls. So it's a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
I worked actually full time until the twins were 2, and that was. It worked out well, actually. I think it worked out well. We had family that helped. We had a part-time nanny, and she actually gave her notice. She had actually got a full-time job with benefits, and it was just something that we couldn't match. And we were grateful for the time we had with her. We were thrilled with the opportunity she had. But since you're in New Hampshire, you also know that childcare in this area is very difficult and very expensive.
Yes.
And trying to find a placement for twins was nearly impossible outside of Boston.
Yeah.
So my husband and I kind of just went like, all right, who's doing it? And who's taking some time off? So I said, well, his job was going very well for him, and my job, I was doing okay, but it was a lot. I was commuting into downtown Boston, and it was a lot of hours. And I said, you know what, I want to take a year off. So that was 2018. And then after that, we kind of got on a roll. It actually worked out well, me being home. There's a lot of coupon clipping. There was a lot of things that we cut out, but it was worthwhile for us. And then I had the blog actually started making a little bit of money in 2019. I was like, oh, all right, well, let's see how this goes. And it kept going, and the pandemic hit, and we're like, we're home. So here I am, in 2024, still home.
I'm curious, did the blog do better during the pandemic since people were home? I'm assuming people would probably on the computer a lot more. I'm wondering if
it did. Like, I have to say the timing of my blog was actually very good, to be honest with you. I did very well during the pandemic. And one of the things that I enjoyed, I realized I enjoy about blogging was not only just kind of the content part, but it was the SEO. Like, I love SEO. To me, it's like, it's a puzzle. Like, how do you get on page one? How do you do it?
Yeah.
And the algorithm at the time, I was doing well during the pandemic. At the time, I think one of the tips was like, keep people on your page, keep people on the page.
Yep.
And I did during the pandemic, I did like I was bored. So I wrote a post on 5 different ways to clean my wooden kitchen cabinets. So I researched, I'm like, all right, let's try this way. And I ended up doing really well on that. Like, I was getting like, I don't know, something crazy amount of hits per month during the pandemic, and people were bored. And I did an incognito tab because I was like, okay, because I was on first page, and I was like above Martha Stewart. I was like, holy smokes, I'm above Martha Stewart. And I realized it was because people were on page for like, it was an average of like 8 minutes. I was like, people are at the pandemic and they know they need to clean their house, but they're bored. So they're actually reading this post for 8 minutes because they're procrastinating that much during the pandemic. They're like, I gotta clean my kitchen cabinets.
They're like reading again.
They're like,
how many times can I read
5 different
post?
ways? Like, which way should I try? So the pandemic was, I have to admit, people were home. They were doing home projects. I got a lot of emails from people either asking for clarification or like saying like, my gosh, like, thank you. Like, I totally messed this up too. And, we got to help you out. So, that was good timing.
Yeah. It's funny because I think like blogs are one of those things that a lot of moms, when they start the whole, how do I make money from home type of thing, blogs are like always one of the ones that comes up. But a lot of people they can't keep up with a blog, or they just don't write well enough, or they don't understand SEO or how to do any of it. They don't know how to market their blog. And so it just never ends up going anywhere, and they find something else in the meantime. And so you hear a lot of people that like try blogging, but don't really make any success with it. So I'd say, at what point were you able to monetize your blog? And at what point did you realize like, oh, wow, like you were just doing it for yourself, but this could actually be something more than that?
So I think when I first started writing, it was like 2017, and it was like the free WordPress account. And then probably like, I don't know, 6 months into that, I realized, wait a minute, like, I'm starting to get some page views. Maybe I should try this. So that's when I started kind of listening to podcasts and following kind of blog experts. And I found one guy who was just really awesome and a great mentor, this guy, Pete McPherson. And I said, you know what, I'm going to switch over. I'm going to try it. Let's just try to like go to WordPress. I think it's WordPress.org. It's the one that like is free, but you have to pay for the hosting and you have to, pay for that stuff. So I switched over to that. And then within like a year, I had enough page views to do, to monetize. Like, I started Amazon affiliate, and then I monetized with one company, and I made just a couple $1,000s, but it was enough to be like, oh, all right. So then, it was like kind of that snowball. And then I got to another advertiser, that had better RPMs and was kind of known for the lifestyle
Mhm.
industry. And I've been with them since, I guess, like 2019, 2020.
Wow.
Mediavine, they are awesome. Like I
Mhm.
really, I think that they are, yeah, kind of a top-notch ad management with regards to lifestyle bloggers, and that's been kind of my main revenue.
Mhm. That's awesome. And so when you were getting connected with them, did you have to apply for, or did they like come and reach out to you? Like, how did that whole process work?
Nope, you have to apply.
Mhm.
And the application process, if I remember correctly, wasn't that bad. I think there was a point where it was like you need to have like 25,000 hits per month, and then it was 50,000 hits per month. I don't know what it is now. They do actually, I take that back. So they do have a new thing called Journey, where they've gone down to this kind of the smaller bloggers that don't have as much page views, but they view is a quality site.
Mhm.
Um, and then, the application process, I don't think I waited too long. And then honestly, I think that they kind of set you up. Like I don't remember, I remember it being a fairly easy process.
Mm. Yeah.
And they have a Facebook group. They have two Facebook groups. Well, I know of two. How's that? There's one that's just for
Yeah.
people who are interested in Mediavine, and there's one that's actually for people who are in Mediavine. And
Mhm.
I find that they have amazing support and amazing resources there.
Mm.
So if anyone does have a lifestyle blog, I would recommend them.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so is it you get paid per how many people visit your blog, or like do they post ads? How does that whole thing work?
So there's a lot of settings in there. Like you can,
Mhm.
once you get in there, you can say, okay, I want a high amount of ads, high density, medium, low. You can even donate some ad space. Like they have some great nonprofits, whether it be something to do with children or with pets, or it kind of runs the gamut that you
Mhm.
can also click on that too. And then they kind of behind the scenes kind of fill the ads.
Mm.
You can turn off ads on certain pages. There's a lot of flexibility behind the scenes,
Mm.
but they kind of do it all. But there's like a dashboard. You can go on the dashboard and you can see like, you get paid once a month. These are your page views. It's revenue per mil,
Mm.
RPMs. Like there's a lot of data on that they give you. I don't really dive into that. I'll be honest with you. I kind of look at
Yeah.
what's my total.
Yeah,
What's-
yeah.
um, that yeah, I think it works out well. So that you get paid by, I think it is by page views, but it's like a revenue per million of something
Yeah,
or
yeah.
other.
That
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah. And then so do they like buy your page off of you? Like do they end up owning it, or how is like the setup of that like legally? I don't know if you even know
Uh,
that answer, but
yeah, I don't know. I know that they have access. I've given them access through WordPress where they can get on and they
okay.
can. You don't actually see it like when if I don't know if you have do you have WordPress at all.
Yeah, yeah, I've been behind
Okay.
WordPress. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't actually see like when I'm working on it. I don't even see where they put the ads.
Mm,
It's only when I actually, go and look, but which is kind of nice. So you actually don't, they kind of handle where the placement is, where they think they
yeah.
should add either video, if they add a video, or sometimes on your mobile screen, like on the bottom, there's like kind of one of those little videos or
Yeah.
messages at the way bottom. And you choose if you want to do that or not. And they're good about telling you like, well, we think that the best RPMs are on these type of ad settings versus these ad settings.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they give you a lot of education on like, yes, it takes up more space on your mobile screen, but it's high RPM. So what's your choice? What do you want to
Yeah.
do? Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I like that they are working with you to kind of really like educate you on how to make the most out of your blog, which is really nice. And you still have full control over everything. So it sounds like you probably just give them like administrative access to your blog in the back end, type of thing. But that's pretty cool. So when you were making your blog and then all of a sudden you saw, wow, we're actually getting some hits and we're able to monetize, so kind of tell me what happened at that point, because now you're doing a second blog as well. So kind of tell me how that whole thing unraveled it also.
Sure. Unfortunately, there was this thing last September 2023 called the Helpful Content Update, the HCU. I don't know if you've heard of that. It was Google always does changes to their algorithm,
Mhm.
and some are small, some are major compared to kind of what type of website you have.
Mhm.
And the HCU, the Helpful Content Update, hit a lot of lifestyle bloggers last fall of 2023. Lifestyle mean travel, DIYers like myself, recipe blogs, and they changed things up. And the search results, a lot of us ended up lower in the search results. In addition, there was also kind of that change with regards to Reddit being on a lot more at the top of Google searches. And also just the implementation of AI, as we do that. So I had a big hit, I'll be honest with you. I got hit a lot. My page views went way down. And what I wasn't quite sure what to do. A lot of us weren't sure what to do. So I actually just took some time off. I just kind of like froze and said, well, I'll just wait and see what happens. And took 3 months and really didn't do anything. And then the next 6 months after that, I decided, you know what, I need to do more learning. Now I've always enjoyed listening to a lot of podcasts, whether it's like the big business people like Amy Porterfield, like she's like, really big, but down to like, kind of the less famous, but still has like these nuggets of great information, and just kind of like learned about them. What I realized is what I did, which was one of my mistakes, was I love SEO. I love being on the first page of Google. So I actually started writing more articles geared towards keyword research and SEO. And that came back to bite me, to be honest with you. I think that I didn't do really social media because I don't like social media. I eased off on email marketing. I mean, because there's only so many hours in the day, So because I was so focused really much on getting on the first page of Google and Pinterest. I love Pinterest. I love Pinterest, which is just another search engine, really. So I put all my eggs kind of in one basket, and that came back to bite me. So this past year, it's been a lot of reflection and learning of like, okay, what's next? And I also think that with my blog, because I started going beyond like old houses, but I love old houses. I'm not a historic preservationist. I don't have a degree in archaeology or history. I mean, for my first job, I used to actually research the history of property. So I know how to do that. And that was a big part of my blog initially. But because I started chasing the SEO, I started doing stuff like move-in cleaning checklist and, a house sitter checklist, because I knew that I could, at the time, rank high in the rankings. So it broadened. And then honestly, I'm a one woman show. Like I can only do so much. So I said, okay, if I'm going to start something new, I was like, maybe I should. And I debated, should I not? And I'm only 2 months into it, so I'm still asking the question. How would I do things different? How would I do things differently? Like, should I have I need to like a business plan? Like, I got to think about like where my audience is and how am I going to try to, risk management. Like, how am I going to try to protect this a little bit better and not go down one path? Like, where do I need to diversify? And I don't necessarily have all those questions answered yet, but I was impatient, so I decided to just try it. For the second blog. So we'll see. So it's an adventure.
I love that. And you were talking about how you're a one-woman show kind of doing all of this. And so, kind of tell us a little bit about what that's like being a mom of small children. I mean, your twins are only 8 still. And trying to run this and navigate, really mompreneurship, and building and growing a business around your blogging.
It's hard. It's funny. Like, so when I worked full time and I had, saw stay-at-home moms, I was like, oh my gosh, you have all day, and now I'm home and I'm like, you do not have all day. It's definitely like the grass is always kind of greener in some ways, I was just like, you could, but so I'm like, I have 5 hours. My kids are gone for 5 hours. Like, how do I manage those 5 hours? And, it's hard. I mean, you're at home, like, it's like, okay, as soon as like you get up in the morning, it's the kids, you get the kids out. And then actually use like this, I'm using this new like time management calendar where I block things out and I'm like, okay, this is what I need to work on. And I've got my goals for the week. And it's, I have found that I'm like, I go. And then suddenly it's 2:00. And what I'm trying to do now is actually like take like 10, 15 minutes and be like, all right, next shift, the kids are coming. I got to go pick up the kids because I
Yeah.
found that I was like exhausted. I was like, I pick them up and I'm like, I gotta sit down. I'm exhausted. And they're like, but mom,
Yeah.
we're home. And I'm like, oh gosh, your mom is like worked all day. Like your mom needs a minute. Well, you were home all day. And I was like,
Yeah.
but it's it's a challenge, but I'm learning to pace myself. And that's something that I need to say, okay, today you are going to work an hour on your new blog, and then you're going to go take the dog for a walk because the dog needs it and you need a break. And then you're going to come back and you're going to work just for, an hour on the old blog. And I need to start updating posts. That's kind of a strategy and trying to revive that.
Yeah.
I find that sometimes every morning when I sit down, I really have to think about, well, what's my schedule? What's my energy? And what's my goal? What's my goals? And sometimes there are days where I work almost 4 hours on the blog, and the house doesn't get clean, and we have peanut butter sandwiches for dinner.
Yeah.
So I find every day is different, and I'm learning to kind of embrace that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have any tips I could use?
I totally feel that. So I actually have a lot of tips if you're open to discussions. So personally, I don't know if you saw in some of the other episodes, but I have 4 small children. So my oldest is 6. So I have a 6-year-old, 3-year-old, 19-month-old, and a 5-month-old. So they're all very, very small. And I do these podcasts in the weekends or the evenings because that's when my husband's home, so he can watch the kids and I can actually do these. But I'm actually a business coach. So I help a lot of mompreneurs on their journey. And one of the biggest things that we find is this time management, because especially for moms, like I specialize in working with moms, because we don't have all the time, right? We have our children around. A lot of us have small children, so there is no sending them to school. And then even if there is sending them to school, like you said, it's like you're up early, you get everybody ready, you bring them on the bus, you get them there. By the time you come back, it's like 9, 10 o'clock. By the time you're actually starting your day, you do all your stuff, and then you got to leave by 2, So it's like you don't really have all that much, time to do all the things. So I am fortunate enough that my kids are very young and we are planning on homeschooling anyway. So I don't have the hustle and bustle of getting them out the door on time and all of that. So it's nice because I have full flexibility of my schedule, right? Meaning I can manipulate whatever I need them to do around whatever I need to do, to some degree, obviously, right? So like, I'll just tell you like what our schedule is and what's worked for me, which is the first chunk of the day, I really dedicate to setting everybody up for the day. So like before 10 a.m. is all family time. I don't expect to work at all. Sometimes if I have if everything's going super smoothly, I might check in on emails on my phone while I'm cooking breakfast or something. But usually it's like get up, give the babies, bottles, feed them, change diapers, get everybody dressed, washed up, have breakfast. I do 1 hour of homeschooling with my oldest. And then I set them up with games. So they just play with their toys. They're allowed to make as much of a mess as they want to. They just play. And then we do about 2-hour time increments. So one of the things I've also learned is, especially if you're working in highly creative work, right, which you are, is getting into the flow is super important, because once you get into that flow state, you can work so much more efficiently and your output is going to be so much better, right? The actual level of what you're doing is just going to be so much higher. And so typically when you're getting into the flow state, you need at least a couple hours to really get into that flow movement. So I usually recommend for people who have very high creative jobs to set apart 4-hour chunks of time, because that means you get a couple hours to really get warmed up and get into that flow, and then to really be in the flow for about 2 hours, and you can get a ton of stuff done. That being said, that means you're not going to get anything else done in that 4-hour time slot, so you got to move that around somewhere else. And then it's also important to note that it's hard to get into the flow and be creative when you've got other things that you have to do later in the day. So before I did my coaching, I actually had a marketing agency, and we did really, really well. I still to this day love marketing, but it was very creative work. And so I would do all my creative stuff actually at the end of the day, because I wasn't, it was really hard for me during the day with all my little kids bothering me. I couldn't get in the flow state. And then so I would literally do it after everybody went to bed, and I'd be up from 8 to 12 doing work. And then I'd go to sleep and wake up super early in the morning with the kids when they wake up, and it just wasn't sustainable. And so I ended up deciding I can't do that anymore. So that's why I'm doing the coaching now. But it's also better because I can teach people what I know and help them be able to do it on their own, But it's interesting. So like I always recommend figure out either a weekend, like if you're able to do like double up shifts on the weekend, if your husband can just take care of the kids on the weekend and you can literally do 8-hour days, or if you're able to stay up a little bit later. And again, that's hard because you have to send them off to school in the morning and you don't really have that flexibility there. But I would say like, having everything done before the kids go to school. That way, by the time you get back, start a 4-hour shift, have an alarm set that you can, once that's done, you're done for the day, do some breathing, maybe do some stretching, something to kind of get you loosened up a bit, and then go pick up the kids and then start your evening shift. Another thing that we did was like everybody in our house has chores. And I am a huge planner, like very type A personality. So I have specific schedules for like all of our cleaning. So like specific days, like these are the things we do every single day. And we do that literally after dinner. So after dinner, the entire family takes about 30 minutes and we just for 30 minutes straight do everything that we have to do for the day to clean everything up, and everybody pitches in, which really helps. The other thing too is like throughout the day as the kids, for our lunch break, we would do 2 hours where I would do like a lot of admin stuff or meetings and stuff like that. And then afterwards, we'd clean up all the toys. So at least it's not all building up till the end of the day, right? We'd clean everything up. We'd have lunch. And then they'd kind of have like a fresh slate to then mess up again,
I know that challenge.
But it helped maintain it. You know what I mean? So instead of at the end of the day being a whole day's worth of stuff I have to now tackle, it was only a couple hours, whatever they got to in the last couple hours, So that really actually helped a lot. And we would do like a lot of the house chores in that middle of the day too. So like if on that day it was cleaning the bathroom, we might, do that extra thing. Maybe it was wiping out the fridge. I do that during that time slot. So we would do that. And then that also helped just keep on top of like the cleaning. So it was like every day, everything we needed to get done would get done. And then every single day we'd have like a specific once a week type of task that we would do also. So it's just about like, for us, it was really about just planning everything out, sticking to that schedule. And it was really hard at first. And don't get me wrong, like it's not 100%. I have small kids. There's days where all they do is fight all day and it's like nothing's going to get done today,
Yeah.
It's not happening,
I'd like to say that when they get older it changes, but
right, exactly. And then just like giving yourself a little bit of grace on those days, and realizing not every day is going to be what you want it to be. But I've just switched it now. So like anytime I'm meeting with people, it's in the evenings once my husband's home, or it's on a weekend when he's home. So that way, at least I can be focused and actually work and provide the value that I need to while someone's watching them. But when it's just like administrative tasks or my own marketing or whatever it is I'm doing throughout the day, I do it usually like in the same room as them. So they'll be playing, I can still oversee them, and I'm just kind of working, and they know not to bother me unless like, someone's hurt or, like figure it out yourselves unless you really need me,
It's good for them. Grow independence. That's good.
Right. Yeah.
But
they're pretty good. And, and it's funny too, because they've grown up this way because I've been in the entrepreneur space since my oldest was born. So they understand at this point that this is how it goes, but yeah, I would say like, if you're struggling with some of that time management, I would say just come up with a really solid schedule. And I love time blocking. That is my absolute favorite. So like, I just take out chunks of time and say, okay, this is the time block for, our morning routine. And then I write up a checklist of all the stuff that has to get done in our morning routine. So like every single morning we just check it off, and go through it and get it all done. And then my work tasks. And then, I throughout the week will come up with like tasks. I'll have a checklist, like a running checklist of all the things I need to get done. And just as I'm doing them through my work, my work chunks of time, I just check them off and then add on more stuff as more stuff comes on, and just keep working through all that. Also prioritize them, of course, in terms of like what's most important, what needs to get done right away, what can wait and get delayed, those types of things. And so it's just, managing all of that. And I think, and taking time to like be healthy too, you know what I mean? Like I also try to squeeze in like some exercise every day, which even though I think a lot of people look at that and say like, wow, that's so like ideal, to have time to exercise. It's like, I wouldn't have the energy to be able to take care of 4 kids and do this and keep the house clean and do all the things that I need to do if I wasn't exercising every day, you know? So it's like realizing that like we can't take care of everything we need to if our health is declining, right? And so like
Yes.
that's number one is like make sure we're being healthy. And then once you have that down, it's like, okay, now how do I create a good environment that I can thrive in? Right? What do
Mhm.
I need to do to maintain a good environment? And then from there, like, okay, now how do I manage the rest? You know, how do I stick this all into a schedule where I can manage it all? Right.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's what's worked for me. And that's typically what I kind of go down, you know, when I work with my clients too. It's like, how can we figure this out for you? Because that's a huge part of mompreneurship. That's the make or break, in my opinion. A lot of women, they can't keep up, you know?
Yep. Oh no, I agree. And I think that you hit the nail on the head with a lot of things. And I think one is having that support from your partner.
Mhm.
Um, when I first started growing the blog, it was at night. It was
Mhm.
weekends. It's uh, there was a lot, and even right now, like my husband's downstairs with the three girls,
Yeah.
and I heard him say, "Don't bother your mother."
Yeah.
You know, like, I could hear him. I was like, as I was closing the
Yes.
door. That and it's funny because I think that he's like, I'm not exactly sure how this all works, what you do. He was like, but I know that you enjoy it and
Mhm.
that you're paying for the kids ballet, hockey, that extra
Yeah.
stuff. So I think that he's on board. He was like,
Yeah.
I love having you home. Now that I don't work, we don't have to worry about travel. Like I
Mhm.
traveled for work, he traveled for work. It was just like if one of us had a trip, we'd be like, all right, how to figure out the
Yeah.
logistics of that. I love the flexibility. He loves the flexibility of me being
Mhm.
home but still making money. So there's definitely a motivation to help. I also say that so I'm about 50. So there are
Mhm.
some changes when you hit 50 that
Mhm.
like you suddenly can't stay up as long as I
Yeah.
used to. And I'm also finding that I do need to take better care of myself. So I can't necessarily be up until midnight or 1 o'clock on a Friday night
Mhm.
writing. Now I want to go to bed at 10.
Yeah.
But I still work Saturday mornings. I'm still waking up early. But what I've been trying to do is actually add more exercise. So during the
Mhm.
week, like I've set my alarm earlier because I know my body needs to exercise now. I understand the importance of that, especially having three kids and keeping up. So I am
Yeah.
totally in agreement with you got to take care of yourself. You got to do
Mhm.
you got to start working out a little more. And I try to do that first thing in the morning before everybody gets up.
Mhm.
And I hate that. It's hard being that
I was gonna
first one
say,
up,
how's that working
like,
for you? Because
oh,
I
it's
still struggle with that a lot too.
it's like you just
I
gotta
kind of
give
squeeze it in during the lunchtime usually. It's like during
it.
like the lunch in the middle,
it,
but
it's
yeah.
it's hard. I have about a 70 to 75% success rate. Sometimes I'm
Mm.
just like, no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I'm not getting up. I'll do it later. Or you
Yeah.
know what? The dog and I, instead of walking, the dog's going to jog today. And the
Yeah,
dog's like,
yeah.
I don't like to jog because I like to stop and sniff everything. And I'm like, no, we're jogging today. I do
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
So the dog's even like affected by this. Like so.
Oh.
So yeah, no, it's good. And just yeah, it's having that support is so important.
Mhm.
I've learned my kids have three whiteboards. I have them taped in the dining room, and they
Mhm.
had chores for today. Actually, I told them while I was up here that you all set a timer for 15 minutes, and you're going to clean the bookcase in the playroom. You're going to clean that half of the playroom. That you're going to clean
Yeah.
that half of the playroom. So, and I think they understand. They start
Mhm.
having a better understanding of like, oh, so I do ballet. I can do ballet because mom,
Mhm.
mom needs to work. And my oldest remembers me working, and she
Yeah.
remembers. I think she appreciates it even more because she talks about. I remember that she went to a great preschool. She went to a great daycare, and I'm so
Mhm.
grateful for them. But there was an element. She was just like, I just wanted to be home sometimes. She's like, and I
Yeah.
couldn't. Like I was there, and so she tells her little sister, she's like, it's really nice having mom home. So
Aw.
she's like,
Yeah, so
it's kind of,
sweet.
it's, yeah, you're like, she's like, I don't want to hang around. I want to hang around on the play rug until 6 o'clock at school. I want to come home. And so
Yeah.
that makes me even motivated even more to make this
Right,
work.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that helps me get up in the morning too.
Yeah. I love that. I love that so
Yeah.
much. And I think that's so true. Like, it's so funny because I've heard so many people or so many women, that talk about, oh, you have to like choose between, a family or a career. That's so prevalent in today's society. And it's like, I think that that is just so backwards, because to me, at least, and to so many moms that I talk about, it's our children that are the greatest motivators. And it's like, it's exactly that where you're looking at, your child. And it's like, that was a big thing for me. I actually collected on student loans for the federal government, which was horrible. But that's what I did before I was pregnant with my first, and then once I was pregnant with her, I was like, I can't imagine coming back to work like after I have her, I was like, I don't want to do that. We have to figure something else out. And luckily we were able to. There's a lot of people who can't, but we were able to figure something out to make it work. And, now we've gone so far, and now I've got 4 kids, and now it's like, I couldn't, now even just beyond that, like with daycare and all these extra costs, I couldn't imagine, there's literally no job I could do unless I was like high executive type of position where it'd make financial sense, beyond anything else. And so I think a lot of times moms are put in this situation where you kind of have to build a business. It's like, we need extra income, but me going to work is not an option anymore, or even just, I did do the whole work thing, and oh my gosh, my heart just ached every single day because I just wanted to be at home with my family. And I think that that's so true. It's so funny. So we've chosen to homeschool our kids, and my oldest, at one point, she had said something like, Mom, what's school like? Because she has never been to school. And we do like a lot of activities with other kids. So she's got friends who go to public school, or go to private schools. And so I was like, well, I said, like, your friend who goes, and I said, they get to go, and they sit in a classroom, and they have a teacher, and they've got their friends and the other students. And she's sitting there like doing her work with like a bag of like, apples, or like, she's like eating her snacks, while working. I was like, yeah, I said, and she goes, what kind of snacks do they have? I was like, well, they don't really have snacks. You don't really eat while you're working. You just do your work. And she's like, she goes, I could never go to school. I don't. she's like, well, she goes, do they get to like do this? And I'm like, not really. Like, I'm like, it's just not the structure of a school, schedule. And it's fine. Like, there are tons of kids that thrive in that environment, but it's just funny because like, when you don't have to, you know what I mean? I think that's where the power comes from, it, where you can actually make a decision for your family and say, we can actually make the best decision for our family because we've created an opportunity where if my kid would thrive really well in a public school or private school or whatever, I could put them in there. But if they thrive really well in homeschool, like, we can do that too, whereas there's so many people out there that just do what they have to do.
Yes. Yeah. No, I was very lucky when I worked in finance, that I knew that I wanted to work part-time once we found out we were having twins. I was like, oh my God, 1, we're having twins. 2, I'm like, how is this going to work? And
right.
Then
Yeah.
3, it was like, all right, well, ideally I wanted to work part-time, which my job, that really wasn't an option. But I said, well, take a year off and we'll figure something out. So I was lucky enough that we were able to save. So I like intensely saved those, found out we were pregnant. And then the first 2 years, and because eventually I was like, I feel like this is just a lot. And my mother-in-law had given good advice, that she was like, a lot of people think that kids need their mothers at home when they're babies and toddlers. And she's like, and in my experience, and she was a teacher for 30 years, many age range. She's like, I think sometimes the middle schoolers and sometimes even the high schoolers, they need their mom home more than some folks anticipate. And I see that now. I see my middle schooler, and I'm grateful to be home, because when I pick her up from school, some of the questions she has or the experiences she has, and she wants to come and talk to me, like, and I know when I pick her up, that's when she's going to talk to me, because as soon as I get home, at the home, she goes home, she has her snacks, she watches TV, she does her homework. That stuff's kind of like gone. I know that if for our family, if I worked like I did and I wasn't getting home till 7 o'clock at night and exhausted, I wouldn't be available to have those conversations with her per se. She wouldn't be coming to me so much. So I'm incredibly grateful for that, for being home. And to your point earlier with regards to being able to make a choice. So I went to college at an all women's college, and my graduation commencement speaker was, she's a New York, maybe she wrote for the New York Times. She's an author, Anna Quinlan.
Yeah.
And she had said in the speech, she was like, you can have it all, just not all at the same time. And being 21, I was like, that's not right. Yes, I can. Watch me, like full of kind of that.
What do you know?
Yeah. And now at 50, I'm like, Anna, you were spot on. Like I'm in complete agreement that yes, we can, as women, we can have it all, just not all at the same time. And that for me, I had this great career. I loved it. I was grateful for it. And now I'm able to be home, but also have a different career, and a career that works for my family and me. Like, I feel like I'm using my brain. I'm building a company, which is kind of fascinating for me. Like I'm a business owner, and still be home and be like, all right, guys, clean the playroom. Or, or, someone comes home with a little more dramatic questions that they want to talk to you about, oh man, middle school is like the Wild West. It really is. Like, it's just, I'm not prepared for this. I was like, I barely made it out. I barely made it through middle school the first time. I'm not sure I'm getting through it with my kids. So, I picked the right partner. I really did. I really picked the right partner to support me. I can't say enough about that. And it sounds like you're in a similar position. So just a lot of gratefulness. And being able to help with after school help. Like, it's, every kid is different. And I have my oldest child, she has executive functioning issues, which is kind of basically like, she can do the homework. Like, the homework is not a problem. It's all the tasks surrounding getting to the homework. When you get to middle school, it's a buzzword. Like, she's got to transition. She's got to get, it's the gathering materials. It's actually sitting down to do it. It's the putting it away. It's actually like turning it in to the teacher.
Yeah.
And, kind of like what they imagine, the kid with the locker, you open the locker and everything falls down on them. That's one of those kids. So there's a lot of energy and time after school, kind of, and checklists and whiteboards and all that stuff, kind of making sure like, this is the routine. This is what needs to be done. And that's just over and over and over. That's a lot of practice. It's just a lot of practice to try to get them kind of on that routine, typical routine of being able to do your homework and turning it in and being organized and remembering to bring your homework home in the first place. I'm grateful that I can kind of shut it down after 2:00 and be able to be there and do that.
Yeah. And I love that. And I love that you're showing up for your child in that way too, because that's like, those extra steps can also be daunting to have to, manage and figure out how to manage. Right. And so just being able to show up for all of that and having that opportunity to do that because of the blogs that you're doing and the entrepreneur type of things that you're doing. So that's really cool.
And I find it fascinating. It's actually one of the reasons I did the second blog, is this whole time management. Because it was like, okay, let's learn about time blocking. Let's learn about priority lists and checklists, and and just learning about like just the way that her mind works, and how with regards to like planning ahead and like organizing ahead. And I find that fascinating. And I find that a lot of the tips and tricks to kind of help kids with executive functioning issues, I find I can use, and maybe I have executive functioning issues. Maybe I do. But some of the tips and some of the time blocking and the checklists and has helped me. I think it's been an interesting experience.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that those are things, like you were saying, that, I mean, honestly can help anybody. I think so many people have those types of issues where just everything seems so overwhelming. There's always so much to do,
There is. Yes, there is. And what's funny is it's actually carried over to my 8-year-old. So my youngest, I think, has the opposite problem. I think she's incredibly organized and very, very like, this is how things happen. She's like, Mom, I want to make a checklist of my morning routine. I'm like, all right. So she's like literally on Canva, like making checklists. And I'm like, you're 8. Like, she's gonna run the world someday. Like, she's like, well, Mom, this is what I'm gonna do first, and then I'm gonna do this. And her older sister's just like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, well, she can make a checklist for you too. Like, I think that my youngest one might be a little type A, which
I love
isn't
that.
necessarily a bad thing. So she might go into business making checklists.
Right. So there's a lot of stuff you can do off Canva. So
There is. I love Canva. Yeah.
yeah. I'm a big fan of Canva too. I was gonna say, have her just learn the whole program in and out. She'll be like ready for any job by the time she's 18.
She will. Yeah, she will. She'll be on time. She'll have her list. She'll have her priorities. She'll have her organizer. She's ready.
And do you find that kind of having the entrepreneurship in your household, like, has that affected the way your children view their futures? I find that a lot of times people who have entrepreneurship in their household, their kids kind of want to build their own business, or their kids are inspired to kind of like walk in their parents' footsteps in that way.
I never really thought of it that way, but considering my middle child has, we live on kind of a main street. She would just all of a sudden be in the kitchen and things are going everywhere. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm having a lemonade stand. I'm like, all right. And then she's a couple times, she's like, you know what? Because we have a small house, and just kind of like try to donate things that we don't use anymore, and clothes we toys we don't use anymore, clothes we've grown out of. And so they are familiar with gathering things and donating. And she's like, Mom, she goes, I'm going to sell my toys. So like she put a table out there. I'm going to make some money and sell my toys. I'm like, okay, let's think through that. We ended up not doing it, but just that spirit.
Yeah.
So my middle one has definitely, she's about, I can see that with her. And my oldest actually just had her first craft fair. So she got into crocheting. And those little like stuffed animals. She had asked for, it's like a Woobles kit. Like Woobles are apparently a big thing in middle school. There's like a crochet club, and she's like she hounded me for she wore me down, because I was like, I'm not sure I really want to spend money, because you got to rent a table, and I was like, I'm already spending a lot of money on yarn, so do I want to do this too? And I said, you know what? And I talked to her executive function coach. And my coach was like, this is a great idea, because what we're going to do is, this is a passion project. We're going to plan this out. We're going to actually use this as an exercise to help her organize, prioritize, and implement an actual plan. And I was like, this is brilliant. Yes. So I was like, all right, happy to spend the money. Let's do this. So like, get a craft fair. So a couple weeks ago, she had her first table and she made money, and she said, okay, I want to do this again. And I was like, you know what? So do I. Because I actually like whipped out my old knitting. So I used to knit in my 20s. And then when I got married, I kind of stopped. And I was like, I was a little worried, because at first when she had the table, she was like crocheting like crazy. And then she stopped. And I was like, are we going to have enough to sell? So I like dusted off my knitting needles and just made a couple hats. And it was fun. It was actually really fun to do that with her. And then, so the money she's made, we're like, okay, like what now that you've gone through this as part of kind of her growing up, learning how to be an entrepreneur, like what's next? Here's your money. Let's figure out what was your expenses? And she goes, well, I want to save a little bit. I said, okay. So we're actually going to go do like a children's savings account, where they have like a booklet and stuff. So we have to do that. And I said, and now you need to invest money and go buy more yarn and figure out what's next and plan for next. So I never thought of if mom's rubbing off on them or not. So maybe that's true. But
sounds like it. Yeah. I see it a lot more in groups where one of the parents is an entrepreneur. I see that a lot, where a lot of the kids have that entrepreneurial spirit. And I wonder if again, it kind of comes back to like the nature versus nurture debate. Is it more that just genetics inclines this family to being more entrepreneurial, or is it because they see their mom doing that? But I would assume it's probably a little bit of both. But
I think so. I do feel bad for the neighbors when there was a lemonade stand, and I'm like, let's make sure. I'm like, one, don't charge your immediate neighbors. I'm like, because we have one. There was one where we had one like almost every weekend, and I was like, you don't need to pay for lemonade, or we really need to make the lemonade better.
Right?
She was like 7, so she's like just mixing things, and I'm like, we try it like that.
Putting out the seeds, That's too funny.
So, they're an adventure. I'm sure you feel the same way.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
My oldest is 6, and she's we've done making soap. That was her first thing. So she wanted to make money like mommy makes money. That's what she said. And so I said, well, what can we do that, you of your tiny stature and, abilities can do? And so I ended up getting went on Amazon, got like a little soap making kit and like just the pour base soap. So it's already put together. There's no chemicals or
Yep.
anything. And we
Yep, we've
just
done it.
melt
Those are
it and then
awesome.
pour it. Yeah. And put in the dye and put in the scents, so we did that and she loved it. And then I went on Facebook and said, hey, my daughter just made a whole bunch of soap. Who wants them? This is what we're selling them for. And sure enough, a whole bunch of people bought them. And so
And,
we've done a few
I get,
batches of it. Yeah.
yeah, and it's been so nice, like to have like the neighbors and the family support of that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Like it's pretty cool. I know one winter, my oldest decided she was going to write a newspaper. And I was like, all right. So it was literally one page. And it was just like, it snowed today. And like, something like that. And like she set out the lemonade stand. She set that out. And I like just posted it. And I was like, well, my journalist's daughter has a one-page newspaper for sale. And I was really thrilled by like not even neighbors, but people who like lived in the town that knew us, like drove over to like we had this newspaper, and just to see like so the expression on the kid's face, like Mom, I won, and I was like, and they gave me a 5. I'm like, wait, you're only supposed to charge $1. And like they just, it warms your heart,
Oh yeah. Yeah, we have some friends that host like these big market days events and a bunch of people buy a table and stuff. And so we did that at one point. We did like a lemonade stand and we made some banana bread together and, sold that for whoever wanted it type of thing. And yeah, it's so much fun to be able to kind of do those things with your kids. And like you said, just watch them light up when they're making the money. And, I love that. And so kind of when you're working with your kids through all of this, what is, I know we kind of talked a little bit about it before, but what does kind of like the day-to-day look like and, managing all the things that you're doing?
As they're getting older, I think they're understanding how to manage the day a little better, and that sometimes mom needs some time to get her stuff done. And now with my youngest being in 2nd grade, they get homework, which can be fantastic because there's a point where we went through this phase, and I'd like to actually bring it back, where we were all coming to the dining room table at like 4:00, and all the 4 of us, and they were doing their homework. Emma was my oldest was doing homework, and she has a lot more homework obviously than the 8-year-olds. And I was actually that's actually when I was trying to do like my Pinterest and my social media marketing, something that doesn't take as much brain power, so that I could help them. And I love kind of we were all working together. And I admit that we kind of fell by the wayside. I've actually been trying to do some new recipes, and I'm for dinner. But and it's more of a time management thing. We've gotten to the phase. I got into the bad habit of making 2 different dinners, a dinner for my children and a dinner for my husband and I. And I think it's okay when they're young, but I think that at 12 and 8 that they can start eating more things, more variety of things. So I'm kind of on the hunt of like, what can I make that everyone will eat that I won't have a lot of complaints with? And I'm still figuring that out. I'll say there's always one that complains. So I don't have any magic menus yet. But I've been working on that, and I'm not the best cook. It doesn't come naturally to me. So when I have a recipe, and I'm an engineer, so I'm like, okay, I gotta like have everything precise. Like my husband's very creative. Like you put him in the kitchen, and he just like throws things together, and like he can
cooks with feeling.
It's a talent, and I do not have that. I'm just like, okay, what am I supposed to? So I've stopped kind of that 4:00. We all sit together to kind of focus on finding meals that we can eat together. So I foresee that maybe another month or 2 of just, I found out everyone will eat lasagna. Everyone will eat shrimp with pasta, as I kind of grow that, grow those menu options. I think I'd like to bring that back together because I think that 1, it's efficient. I think it's efficient. I think 2, it's good for them to see me working. They only really see me. I'm working during the school day. They don't really know what I'm doing. Like, what is mom doing? It's not something they even think about. And on the weekends, I'm getting up early, maybe they're not awake yet, or at night. So I think that it's important as they get older that they actually see me actually do the work more versus when they're not doing something else. And that's going to help me with my time, quite frankly.
Yeah.
That's going to help me. Yeah.
Love that. So we'll do a couple more questions, and then we'll kind of wrap all this up. So if you were talking to another mom who wanted to make a blog specifically, right? What's the advice that you would give them?
Start small. It's a very specific niche. And I think some people think, and what I've learned is, with regards to your topic, I think that picking the right topic is really important. And it's important for a couple reasons. One is, do pick something small. You can always expand versus having something really big like travel, venues, lifestyle. I think that for me, it just got so overwhelming. And so to start small and expand. So that was my first one. The second is something that either you're very passionate about, or you know something a lot of, that you're truly an expert in. Clearly, I'm not an expert in old houses. I'm not an expert in time management, but it is something that I am passionate about, that I want to learn about in my off hours, podcast while walking the dog. And will keep me up reading at night or something like that.
Yeah.
It's something that's going to have to keep you up at night, that you're going to want to do this. And I think that also helps if you're not an expert, if it's just something you're passionate about, that passion will come through the computer screen, for lack of a better term. Like, I think that helps with regards to engaging readers and finding readers in an audience, is kind of having that passion of things. So that's something, is be very specific on what you be very cognizant of your topic, of what you want to write about. Two, I would follow a lot of Facebook groups and listen to the podcast. There's a lot of free things out there. Blogging does not have to be expensive. I'll be honest with you. I think that it can be done very much on the cheap. I think you just have to know where to look. And I think that there's some great resources out there that are low cost, and even free. And I think that what you want to do is, you want to make sure that you find someone to follow with regards to, 1, motivation, 2, someone specific who knows social media, 3, someone specific with blogging. And just listen to them and follow them for a while and just learn from them. And then decide if you want to buy their product or buy more things. I think that there's a lot of programs out there that are expensive, and I don't necessarily think that they are going to. You can find things that are cheaper. How's that? That I think that still adds enough value. I think those would be like my big ones. I know that it's a long haul, like it is, and it can be lonely. It's a long haul. It can be lonely if you don't find people to support you. And, and I think there's different levels of support. I mean, there's your partner who doesn't necessarily know what you're doing, but there to say, like, hey, Friday night, I'm going to take the kids for an hour, go upstairs in the bedroom and go work. I think there's a lot of great, those Facebook groups that you're learning in. Find somebody that you can chat with. There's even like local women's business groups that you might find another blogger, or maybe an online marketing person, or just someone that you can connect with who has an online business that you can kind of meet for coffee once a month and just kind of chat. I think that type of support is also very important. I think about that. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. What have you found kind of? Actually, I'm gonna turn the light on.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
I know,
hold on.
it's down around here. Perfect.
Sorry about that.
Okay. I agree with all of that. I think connecting with the right people, following the right people, and like you said, like podcasts and YouTube channels, those are great places to get so much information. And I think like nowadays we live in such a great time, because it's what do they call it? The age of information. It's like anybody can get access to any information that they want nowadays, and most of the time for free, right? So it's like you can really find, if you're hyper specific with your searches, if you're hyper specific, like SEO, you know how that works. If you're hyper specific with what you're looking for, figure out what you're trying to accomplish, and then what are all the steps that are going to help you get there, and then really figure out like, what do I need to do to make each step happen, right? And then search it, like go out there and find the answers to how to make that happen, because a lot of times I always like to talk about how like entrepreneurship is like a game, right? It's like you've got different levels that you level up with. And so you have to sit there and grind and, beat up all the bad guys to get as many points as you can until you can beat the next boss, right? Then you're leveled up enough to beat the boss. Then you beat the boss, and then what happens? Well, you can't go off and just start beating up the next boss because you're going to lose. So what do you have to do? You have to go out there and grind and beat up all these other people to get enough points and level up and, do all those things. And so, entrepreneurship is kind of the same way. It's like there's so many different bosses that you're going to have to beat, right? Whether it's learning how to market your business, learning how to identify an offer that's actually sellable, right? Finding your niche, right? Whether it's figuring out how to sell that product, whether it's in copywriting or whether it's on a phone sales call, what are those sales steps? Because every business is different. The more high leverage your business is, the more sales steps you want to put into it, right? So there's different processes there, how to build a sales funnel, how to automate all these things so you don't have to do all the things all the time. There's so many different, levels that there are. And then once you get to that point, your typically next step is like building a team, right? And that's a whole nother skill set of like, how do you train people? How do you find good hires? How do you build good culture and leadership in your company, So there's so many different levels. And I think a lot of times we don't realize that, by the time you get to that point, you've been in it for years, And so we go into this thinking like, I'm not a business owner. I don't know how to do all these things. And it's like, you're the same place someone else was, which is you're at the beginning. Just get through that first boss first, right? And the best thing is, where are my problems in my business? So you look at your business and say, what are the problems I'm coming up across? And there's two different things you can always fix in your business. There's missed opportunities, and then there's the actual problems. And so what I have found is that by actually solving the problems, you're moving the needle forward in your business so much more than trying to attack missed opportunities, right? Because if there are problems in your business, those are going to keep being problems no matter what happens. So fix the problems first, then go on to missed opportunities and expanding and growing and doing those types of things. And there's always problems. There's always problems to be fixed.
Always.
So
Yeah.
the SEO changed. Like, okay, let's figure out how to now work with this new SEO algorithm, right? Okay, like my social media, like everything's plateaued. What's going on there? Figure out what's going on with the algorithm. Figure out, are you attracting the right target audience to actually get sales? There's so many different components. So you just have to figure out like, okay, what's the problem I'm having? And kind of reverse engineer that problem to figure out what are the things we need to do to fix that, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing is just like, don't get discouraged. No, every single entrepreneur is fixing some sort of problem. Even Jeff Bezos is out there fixing a problem,
Yeah.
It's like,
and I have to admit, after the whole like HCU, like, of my blog, it took me a little while to really try to put a positive spin on it. It was like, okay, like I got to figure out something new. And, so I was like, well, let's try digital products. Like I've never done digital product before. And that's something I'm still kind of like, and it's actually something I'm planning on trying to help revive the Everyday House is, okay, I got to learn a new skill. Like I'm trying to be like, you know what, now I'm going to learn about digital products. Who's follow some experts in digital products, learn Canva better, like stuff like that, like that. Yeah. And I find that even though I was kind of forced to do that, I'm being forced to do that, I kind of like it. Like it's, yeah. So, I'm trying to say, okay, there's a problem. I got to fix it. I took my break. Now I got to figure out how to fix it. How do I earn back that money that I've lost and add income? And, digital products or Etsy. I thought I'd try Etsy. It'd be fun. I'm still on Etsy. Etsy's mixed reviews on Etsy. But it's, it forced me to learn other parts of how to make money from a blog. And I'm grateful, I'm trying to be grateful, positive about that versus missing out on, I still love SEO. I still love it, but I do need to focus on other things, and I'm a better person for it. So that's my motto.
Absolutely. I love that. So if people were trying to find your blogs, right, where would they go to find them?
Everydayoldhouse.com or whilemomwaits.com. I'm on Pinterest. I'm on Instagram. I have a Facebook pages for both. I'm on Twitter, but don't find me on Twitter. I'm really not on Twitter
Yeah.
or X. I'm sorry, it's X now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I had a brief moment on TikTok, so I wouldn't go there. So those would be the best places to find me.
Love that. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. This was fun. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.